Hi there, I'm Rex King. Welcome back to another edition of Monday Night Movie. Today we're talking Wonder. Wonder was directed by Steven Gabowski and stars Jacob Tremblay as Augie, a kid born with facial abnormalities. Because of this, he spends most of his young childhood in his home surrounded by his family, his father played by Owen Wilson, his sister Via played by Isabella Vidovic, and his mother um, played by Julia Roberts. Then one day, his parents decide to send him to elementary school for the first time because they want him to get to be around other kids. So we follow him through his fifth grade year. This film was released on November 17th, 2017. It did really well at the box office for a film like this, placing second only behind, well, Justice League, which, yeah, that's going to happen when you're up against a superhero movie. Anyway, the critics gave it mainly favorable reviews, however, felt like it was mainly too emotionally manipulating, not relying too much on tropes and not trying to just trying to basically manipulate you into feeling a certain way. So I disagree with that statement, actually. I think this film is doing exactly what it wants to do. Saying this film is emotionally manipulating too much is a little bit of a non-starter, considering that's the entire point of a genre of film like this. It's supposed to manipulate your emotions. I don't get the complaint, but I guess it exists. I think this film's actually far more profound than they give it credit for. I'll get into that in a little bit, but let's start with some of the other good things in it. Mainly the acting. So this film is mainly children actors, and that could usually go one of two ways. Usually it can be very crappy, or it can be absolutely spectacular. This is the latter of those categories. All the actors do a fantastic job. And Jacob Tremblay does amazing as Augie, especially considering how much layers of prosthetics he has on in this film. Yeah, he does not look like this, but he manages to pull it off spectacularly. Now, another thing I like is the way this story was done. Normally, when you're dealing with something like this, it's very easy to just fall into some tropes and some one-note character traits, but every character has their time in the sun and feels like a three-dimensional character with flaws and excellent traits. I mean, I really enjoyed that. I mean, even the bully character gets an explanation for why he is the way he is, and I really enjoy that. Now, this leads into what makes this film profound, in my opinion, and that is the style of which this film was done. This film could have easily just followed Augie through his journey, but it follows all those around him in addition to himself. Every so often we will switch perspectives. Initially, we see this switch happen with Via, but we also get to see the perspectives of Jack Will, a friend that Augie makes at school, and Miranda, Via's former best friend. So, why does that make this film profound? Well, it shows that Augie's not the only one struggling, and shows each and every character's own struggle and how they overlap. You see, this film is about belonging. Every character in this movie wants to belong. Via, for example, feels like she's pretty much the outsider in her own family. She even says that the only people who truly seem to get her and see her are her grandmother, who's deceased at the beginning of the movie, and her best friend Miranda, who ends up blowing her off when they meet back up in high school. This causes her to feel again ostracized until she meets a boy named Justin, and she ends up lying to him, saying that she's a lonely child, mainly because she's worried that Augie's existence would again he would focus only on that as opposed to her. And she just wants to feel like she belongs and is seen by somebody. Then you have Jack Will's character, who, I'm going to get the spoilers here. At the midway point of the film, he insults Augie without knowing that Augie's in the room. And you're immediately taken aback by this because he seemed like one of the good kids. However, it's kind of revealed that he really wants to belong like everyone else and was worried that the main group of boys, mainly run by the bully in the movie, he was worried that they wouldn't have accepted him unless he did say those things. He regrets saying them and really wanted to be friends with Augie, but was worried about not being able to fit in. Then there's the Miranda story. This one was one I was not expecting to care about, because at first Miranda is a one-note character, someone who blows Via off and we never get to see her. But we actually get to learn why. You see, she is having her own issues with family. Her father and mother are divorced. Her mother's drinking herself to death at this point. And her father is off with his new young wife, as she describes it. And she wants to feels like she's outcasted because of that. And when she's going off to camp before the next year of high school, when we see her again, she tells people that she basically impersonates Via. She tells Via's story as if it was her own. And because of that, people want to talk to her, want to bring up things, ask her questions, and she feels like she belongs. However, because of that, she feels ashamed and doesn't want to tell Via what's going on and doesn't want to lose that sense of belonging. However, she realizes where she truly belonged was with Augie, Via, and the rest of the family, because that is where she felt the most comfortable. Again, it's nice to see that every character kind of has their own arc, and it doesn't get confusing. And what makes this profound is that, again, it's all about belonging. And that is a story that needs to be told. How people feel when they're not part of the main group or feel ostracized in some way. And this resonates with me personally because for most of my high school life and middle school even, I did not feel like I belonged. I really felt ostracized. I had maybe 2 people I could call my friends. And it just really was odd for me, especially since I came from a small hick town that really was backwards as far as the way they believed things. And me being bi didn't really feel like I belonged there or fit in anyway. So I even had to hide the fact that I was bisexual for most of my high school life. I only really came out like towards the end when I felt comfortable and like I was free of that. And the only way I was able to make it through was I had a family dynamic that I was able to fall back on. My father, my mother, and my sister. And honestly, without them, I don't think I would have made it through high school. I really don't. And I think that's why this story resonates for me. Because I was able to realize that even though I felt like I was alone, I really wasn't. And that's what these stories are. These characters trying not to feel alone and just trying to be a part of something. And at the end of the day, that's why this movie resonates, in my opinion. I really enjoy that this film takes it seriously, and I thoroughly recommend it. I give it a 8 out of 10. I'm borderline 9, but there are a few instances where I feel the film just drags. That being said, I definitely recommend it, especially if you've ever felt alone or if you've ever felt ostracized. This film will remind you that you are not alone. You definitely aren't. there is always a group that you will belong to. There is always somebody who will make you feel like you aren't alone. Well, next week I'm looking at an underrated Disney classic. I'm, of course, talking about Alice in Wonderland. See you next time.